days of bloodshed. That's how long it lasts. 10,000 days of bloodshed. Taste the blood, shout in the blast. Nothing in memories for the minds who are not there. Just be so inhuman, not to think, they're just gonna count. It's one of those souls of those who live, not those who die. Everybody fucking life inside of those who want to survive. 10,000 days of bloodshed. Stick your mind up from the past. 10,000 days of bloodshed. Feel the scars, how long they last. Just a symptom of the universe. That's the way of war. 10,000 days of bloodshed never leaves my fucking mind. 10,000 days of bloodshed, got to leave it all behind. Into the fire!
Alright, so I guess that didn't technically take us to the end of the countdown, because it looks like we've still got about 55 seconds left according to my little counter here. So, but anyway, I'm going to go make the posts over in Discord and forums real quick, letting people know that it's starting. And then we can get started. I guess I'm competing with the Denizen and his Zip Japan for viewership. So, you know, it might be a little slower than it has been in the past, but that happens. You know, what can you do? I really only have Fridays free so that I can do this sort of thing. And let's kill that. And now go make the post on here. So I will start taking questions in a few minutes here. And the last couple of times we've done this, there has been some good stuff that came out of it. The first AMA that I did, somebody suggested the free cam mode, and so I made that based on a request in the Ask Me Anything. And then the second Ask Me Anything saw the birth of the Move Lists mod. So these things have led to some decent stuff in the past. So, you know, hopefully we can continue that trend and something interesting will come out of this one too. I guess now I gotta post on Steam. Huh, I didn't expect you guys to be able to see that. That wasn't the goal. I should probably turn that off, huh? Let's see here. That, yeah, there we go. Holy crap, that's there we go. And now Steam. Oh, I don't know how I managed to not be on the Fire Pro game in my library. So what I'm going to suggest for this one, since I'm competing with the Denizen, is that if you want a video component, go watch his Zip Japan show with the volume down and listen to me. Keep it open in 2 tabs. And then you can pop back in over here if you have a question, you know. And since I'm going to read the questions from the... what the hell is going on with this thing? Okay, there we go. Since I'll read the questions in the chat, you shouldn't miss anything. So... And I'll post the link up to Denizen's Twitch here in a second. Let's see. I gotta go get it, so let's do that. So there's the Denizens. If you want a video component, I suggest that you go there. Because I am not going to be doing any video this time. It's just not worth it to me to mess around with starting Sims or whatever. You know, and just having them play in the background. It's just a distraction. So let's move this. Okay. So, with that done, now you can watch the zip thing. Like I said, just mute it if you want to hear me and don't want to hear the sounds of Fire Pro. And then you can listen to me and watch the zipped event and get the best of both worlds. So, So I'm going to start taking questions now. Somebody asked how is it going tonight, Zilla? It's going pretty good. Fridays are generally the day that I'm free to do this sort of thing. So, and I know it's probably the same for a lot of other people. So, and I don't like going out. So, I just sit at home and do this. Um, so, um, without further ado, I guess I am going to open it up to questions. If any of the 6 of you that are in here have any questions, feel free to ask them now. How does the championship entrances work? So that's something that I haven't released publicly yet. It's still in the testing version. But so the way that it works is I'm using... Me and Ace sat around one day and I helped him with his attire extensions mod. And we came up with a way to dump individual costume files and reload them just from a regular text file. And so what that portion of the mod suite does, it's part of the entrance attires mod. So it adds a new button that you can click that allows you to set up championship attires. And when you do that, you can dump them to a special folder. And before you start every match, the game will search and see if any of the wrestlers in the match are a champion. And if they're a champion, if they have a championship attire that's been dumped out. And if they do, then it will load that instead of their normal entrance attire or normal match attire. And that's how that works. It is not part of the promotion mod. So... and yes, it will work in a non-title match. The question was, will it work in a non-title match? Yeah, so the way that it prioritizes things is it looks for the title that's on the line in that match. And if it finds that, they will always come out with that title if they are the champion. So it prioritizes the match or the title that's on the line. But in the case of multiple champions or guys who hold multiple titles or non-title matches, it will search through the entire list of titles, and it will pick the first one that it finds. So if a guy holds your world title and your Pacific title, and they're in that order, let's say, then it will prioritize the world title, and so the guy will always come out with the world title attire if you have them set up for both attires. What I did when I started the mod was I went through all of my wrestlers for Royal Ring, and I set up like an extra... Most of them don't have 4 attires. Most of my guys have maybe 2 at the most. So I just added an extra attire, and I changed it to all of the Royal Ring titles, and then I dumped each one, and then turned that attire off again. So technically all of my wrestlers now have a championship entrance or championship entrance attire for all of my titles, just because it's pretty easy to do. But yeah, it works in non-title matches too. They'll just come out with the first title in your list that they hold. Any interest in picking up the DLC? I remember you weren't too excited about Fire Promoter and not sure how interested you are in the NJPW goodies. I will continue to buy the DLC, one, to support Spike, because they've been very good to me. With the modding stuff, they've been very supportive, even though they can't officially support me. They've been very good, so that's been nice. And 2, because I love new moves. I love creating stuff. And so, Fire Promoter, while I'm not super interested in it, I'll grab it to support Spike, but the NJPW stuff I will grab because it will have new moves, new parts, and all of that other stuff. And I will use it to create my own guys. I have absolutely no interest in the licensed New Japan Pro Wrestling wrestlers or rings or any of that stuff. It's just, that doesn't interest me. But the new moves and new edit parts definitely do. When you write code for the mods in Visual Studio, how do you apply them in game? Do you just use Mike's patcher, or is there other steps too? It's really just the patcher. The patcher does all of the work. Before the patcher, there was ways to do it. using IL Spy or using reflection or something like that. But the patcher just makes it really easy. So it's really you write it up in the patcher, make sure that all of your references are good, and then patch it in, and that's really all it is. Let's see. I'm losing my place. Would it be okay if I test the title entrance mod in a stream? Yeah, that's fine. I don't. If I put it out there, even in testing, you're free to use it however you want. I don't really care. It's not a secret or anything. It's just I haven't used it enough to say that it's bug free. So that's why it's in testing. So yeah, go ahead. Is there any plans on releasing more creative move packs after the August release? No. Spike asked me to stop until they're done working on the game. I don't think that they mean done working on the game as in they've released it on the PS4. I think they mean until their parent until Spike Chunsoft executives say, "All right, you guys are done. You don't. We're not funding this anymore. So move on to other projects now." And so, yeah, it's kind of a double-edged sword in that, to be totally honest, I want them to be done now so that I don't have to update the mod suite because it is gigantic at this point. It is, I think that it's several 100,000 lines of code long, and when they update, things change, and so it's a giant pain in the ass. So part of me wants them to just have the plug pulled now, and not because I'm being mean or because I don't trust their vision or anything like that. It's just, it's a lot of work for me when they update, and so, it's a pain. And I know I took that on myself by releasing mods for a game that was in progress, so it's not really their fault. It's just part of me wishes that they would call it a day, and then part of me wants to see what they do with it and hope that there's a lot of stuff that's in there that I'm not supposed to talk about, so I'm not going to give any specifics here. But there's a lot of stuff in there that would be really awesome if you guys had access to it. So I really hope that they keep working on it so that there's way more cool stuff, that they put out there that y'all can use. So, the mod suite has always been a nightmare to update. Somebody commented it's going to be a nightmare to update. And the biggest problem with the updating is that, so if they add one line of code in some of the thingies, it will throw off all of the pointers in that method, and I have to go and find every pointer and update it, and so it's a huge pain. That's why I always tell people, well, it could be weeks before I get to this. And then, of course, in typical fashion, I tell you it could be a week, and then I have it out in the next couple of hours, because it's really not hard work. It's just tedious work. So, yeah. I really hope they release a user-friendly, proper version of WasaMake. I'm having fun with it, but it's tough to navigate for the modding impaired. I'd gladly pay for it. Yeah, I would love to see something like that, and, unofficially, I think that they have plans to do so, to release it to the public. I can't tell you anything about the conversations that I've had with Spike or Dave about it, but I think that part of the reason that they asked me to stop is due to the fact that they may want to release it in the future, and so they want it to be special. They want it to be a surprise. They don't want it to be something that everybody was just like, yeah, we knew it was there. What took you so long? So it's one of those things that I think that they really want to. So I'd keep an eye out for it, and I'm iffy on the paying for it thing. It has literally been in the game since the very first release over a year ago. So I think at this point, it's unfair to charge people for it if it was something that you worked on when you took their initial money. I have no problem with them charging for the New Japan stuff. I have no problem charging for the Fire Promoter. I don't feel that they should be charging for stuff that was in the game when they took our initial $20 or whatever, $24 or whatever it was. And that's my opinion. So, well, you'd gladly pay for it, and I'd probably pay for it. I don't know how glad I'd be about it. So why don't you like At the Gates? So if you missed out on the pre-chat music, I played a lot of death metal and black metal and stuff leading up to the official Ask Me Anything, because I like death and black metal. So that's what I listen to. And somebody brought up At the Gates, and I said, well, you can ask me in the AMA why I don't like At the Gates. So here it is. So I got involved in metal in 1995. So that was 23 years ago. It happened to be the same exact year that Slaughter of the Soul came out. And that album was gigantic. It was everywhere. You could not avoid it. So I've literally been listening to Slaughter of the Soul since I got involved in metal. And one, I don't generally like the really melodic stuff. If you listen to the stuff that I played when I was doing the countdown for this to begin, you probably noticed that. If you weren't here, the gist of it is I really don't like melodic metal, and I've had to hear that, or melodic death and black metal. I don't mind melodic like heavy metal, but death and black metal, I like it to be a little more nasty. And so I've been listening to that literally since I got involved in metal, and it drives me up the wall. I've heard it so much that I never need to hear it again, ever. And that's why I don't really care for At the Gates. What are your thoughts on open sourcing your code when you retire from modding? If I ever give it up, I will definitely release the code. I've never been... if you read the permissions that I did when the Move thing was stolen about 3 weeks ago, somebody took my public Move Maker mod and added on to it a little bit, and opened up some stuff that I never intended to be public, basically. And so I wrote up a big permissions thing, and if you read it, I'm not that interested in. I don't even care if people credit me so much as I just want to be asked about using my code first. So it's not that I'm definitely not like trying to hide my code from everybody. I've showed people how to use it through ILSpy, like how to access it if they're going to mod their own stuff. So I'm all for it, and if I ever retire or anything like that, I would absolutely release it to the public so that people, have access to it and can mess around with it. One thing that people will, and I'll probably preface this in my post if I ever release it, is that I had never done C# programming before I started the mod suite. I had worked mostly with like Visual Basic and a little bit of Java and a little bit of C++, and so I had a pretty solid background, but I'd never really worked with C#. So some of the really early features are really probably not as condensed as they should be or could be, and so yeah, that's something that people will have to deal with when it becomes public. So yeah, it's I would like to I'm all for supporting the community, really. Some of the community frustrates me greatly, but for the most part, I've been playing this game since 1996 or 97, so I feel like I should give back. It's definitely been there for me when I wanted to play a game, and so So you don't like Septic Flesh, or do you prefer Bloodbath? Bloodbath-wise, Peter Tardigan and Michael Arkefeld. Okay. By the way, it's EOW Federation. Okay. So another metal question, since I was playing on the metal. Um, I never really cared for Septic Flesh. No, I like the very first album, but not even enough to remember what it's called. It was okay, not my thing. Um, it's definitely better than their later albums. And Bloodbath I never got into. As far as like Peter Tardigan, I really like The Abyss. I didn't even like Hypocrisy very much, but The Abyss and War are both fantastic. So I stick with those bands when I'm going to listen to that stuff. And Michael Ackerfeld is I don't know. I've never been a gigantic fan of anything that he's done aside from Catatonia, I guess. So, and Catatonia really is not something that I listen to very often. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and if I so I've been around for Fire Pro. What did I say? 96 or 97. So either 22, 21 or 22 years. I've been around Fire Pro, and I've never really had a chance to give back. I helped translate Fire Returns a little bit. I think I gave Bill Wood the weapon translations and stuff from the Create menu, that kind of thing. I mean, real simple stuff. I, but this is the first chance that I've ever had to like give something really nice back, or something that I feel really mirrors like what I've gotten out of the game. I've given it back now, and so it's nice to be able to do that, and it's nice to be appreciated by people who were there when I started. And I know that it's going to make me sound like I'm elitist for the old guard and less interested in the new folks. But the people who were there when like I got who have been there as long as me, or people who were there when because I lost touch with Fire Pro for a little bit in between probably about 99 and 2001. So for like those 3 years, and then I came back and I started seeing names like Spunk and Geese and Muka and Sunnybone. So it's nice to be acknowledged by those people as having given something back, because they're the people that were there when I really started to take an active interest in the game and being part of the community. I guess when I first got involved, I was playing Super Fire Pro Premium X, the one on the SNES, and I was not online, so I was playing by myself, and I wasn't really part of the community. I did have the translation that I got off of somewhere. I think it was the Ice Masters translation. What is it? Frank James Chan, I think. And so, he's not around for me to give back to, because I used a lot of his translations. But those were the people that were around when I started coming around and being a part of the community. So it's nice to be acknowledged by that crew. There are some people that I always wonder what happened to them, like Trauma Taker and Muak. He was. I'm pretty sure he was somebody's all to joke account on GameFAQs, but I could never prove it. So, is it possible to isolate the length of submission and the sliding to the ropes from the CPU difficulty settings? I've never looked, so I don't want to say yes or no, but probably, except that it would. I'm pretty sure they're all done on a table, because most of the difficulty settings options are part of a table. So it probably would be you would be able to set them all to like low, like if you wanted them to slide slower and stay in submissions longer, but you wanted the instant response time of level 10, you could probably do that by altering that table and copying the later or the earlier values later in the table. But I've never looked to say for sure it's possible or for sure it's not. So, yeah. So right now the way that Wazamake works, and it's Wazamake, it's not Wakamaze. Wakamaze is a mistranslation that what is it? Obvious Excitement, the guy who stole my stuff, he misread it or mistranslated it and never fixed it. So anyway, so in WasaMake, it loads the Fire Pro returns moves through that button press thing that I showed everybody in the tutorial videos. And but the Fire Pro World moves are actually loaded in a different way. They're actually their own text files in the game data, and so they don't load the same way. And so WasaMake doesn't load them because my guess, and if you load up WasaMaze and click on the very last option in the menu bar, it will bring up a little about screen, and it literally says Fire Pro Returns HD. So my guess is that that tool has been around since they were thinking about retooling Fire Pro Returns, and who knows how long ago that was. That could have been, before the push to get it onto the PlayStation Digital, for the PS3. I don't know when that might have been, but my guess is that tool has been around for that long, and so it loads the Fire Pro Returns data natively, but it doesn't load any of the new Fire Pro World data natively. And so I worked around this with the Move team. I wrote a tool that only the Move team has access to, so don't ask, you're not getting it, that dumped all of every move out to a bytes file, which allowed you then to load it back into WasaMake. If someone wants to tackle writing their own tool, I won't stop you, but I'm not going to release my tool publicly because I told Dave, the community guy for Spike, that I wouldn't release any of this stuff, and he told the team, and the team was appreciative of that, and so I'm not going to go back on my word and release stuff that I promised them I would not. So I've long been interested in the commentary engine mod, but it's quite the procedure to get it going. I've been loving the simplicity of the new ring announcer and crowd mods that I can just drop in MP3. Would a super simplified commentary mod be possible that works along those same lines? No. The reason that a ring announcer mod works the way it does is because it can load during that it can load the sound files between the time when you click start match and when you actually see the entrances play. But if I was to start loading MP3s during the match, what would happen is on fast computers you probably wouldn't notice it because Audio Player, the tool that they use to load MP3s, is actually not that bad, and the load time is pretty small for that tool. But on slower computers, and I've noticed that a lot of people in the Fire Pro community have slower computers, it would cause serious lag and slow down during the matches, and I don't think that trade-off is worth it, and that's why I went with the asset bundle approach, because asset bundles, everything loads from an asset bundle a lot faster. It doesn't need to convert, because that's the other thing that UAudio does. So UAudio converts to WAV, and that's why it's able to play MP3s, is because it takes the MP3, it decodes it, and it converts it to a raw WAV format, which Unity can play. So that's how it works. And so if I was doing that on people's computers, just every time I needed an MP3 file, it would start to slow down pretty drastically, and I don't want that. So that's why the commentary engine works the way it does, and the announcer mod works the way it does. It's just two separate opportunities for loading, and the opportunity that presented itself with the announcers made it possible to just load them from the hard drive instead of needing an asset bundle. Yeah, that could explain why the Wazamake existing for so long would explain why the UI is so bad. That is a total possibility. I really don't know much about the history of Wazamake. I've never sat down. I'd like to. I'd honestly like to do one of these sort of things with Dave, but then I mean, I know for a fact that there's only so much that he can talk about publicly, and when, if you remember the very first or second stream that Spike did officially, when they were doing them on their Twitch stream, people asked about the Move Creator because we didn't know that we weren't supposed to talk about it or bring it up, and I had both me and Jason Blackheart had posted photos of it and that sort of thing, so people knew they've known it existed since like 2 days after release. So it was asked about, and Dave asked the director, and the director's official response was something along the lines of, "Oh, it's a Move debugger. There's not much more to it." So I think that they're trying to just pretend it doesn't exist, basically, at this point. So it would be hard to get any kind of history of it or anything from them. Is it possible to extend priorities beyond 12, like the attire extension? Yeah, I mean, if you remember, I wrote a extended priorities mod before they extended priorities, so the initial one was when the game release was 3, and I upped it to 6, just because I felt like 6 was enough, and then they upped it to 10 on the next release, and then they've done what, 12 or 13 now, but it's still, I mean, I could up it to 100 if I wanted to. It's not difficult to do. It's difficult to program a UI for. I do not like UI programming. If you notice, the mod suite is not what you would call a visual masterpiece as far as UI is concerned. It gets the job done, but it probably could be better. It could be streamlined better. It could be set up better. I don't like UI programming. It's just not my thing. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I could up it to 100 priority sequences, but I'd have to write a UI to allow you to edit all 100 priority sequences, and yeah, I'm not that keen on doing that, so there's that. But who knows? I mean, it's a possibility, and if a bunch of people chime in and tell me that they want more priorities, I certainly could do that. It would make your edits not uploadable to the workshop, and that's the thing with that mod, is that it can't apply to only certain edits. It would make all of your edits unable to be uploaded, period. So it would be a trade-off. Are there anywhere on the forum for crowd chants yet? No, the crowd chants thing, I don't think that it'll ever become a widely used feature, because getting enough people to sound like a legit crowd chant is kind of hard to do. So I don't think that there's going to be a lot of use for it or anything. It does exist in the mod suite already, the actual feature itself, but I just don't see people sharing a whole lot of crowd chants. But if I'm wrong, feel free to, if you have a bunch that you want to share and you're asking, I just butchered that word, if you're asking if there's a place where you can upload them, no, there isn't, but feel free to make one if you've got stuff to share. It wouldn't be a bad thing. I just didn't think it would be that widely used, so I didn't bother. Sort of like the Trons thing. I made that thread for the Trons, but only like 3 people use it, so it's not really getting used. I had the idea for this, the Rumble mod to be exact, and I was wondering if it was possible for me to assign extra health spirit to any wrestler who scores an elimination or lasts a certain amount of time. So the time is only the amount of time they've been in the Rumble is only calculated after they're eliminated. So I couldn't do it based on how long they've been in without recalculating all of the time for everybody. Each clock tick, which would, I think most people's computers would handle that, but on top of all of the other stuff it's doing, I just think it would be an unnecessary it would be an unnecessary tax on the computer. So I don't think I'll do that. But as far as on an elimination, yeah, absolutely, I could implement that with a little checkbox that said, regain spirit and health on eliminations. So it made people. It kind of gave a boost to people who eliminated people, and you could see, maybe it would eventually influence the course of the Rumble if they eliminated enough people. So, but yeah, that's definitely a possibility. Will there be any plans on allowing modded edits to be uploaded in the future? No, and that was one thing. So, I don't know how breach of contracty I'm being. Not that I'm under contract, but how bad my etiquette is here. But I'm so when the Wazamake tool was released publicly by Obvious Excitement, I sent a message to Dave, kind of letting him know what the situation was, that it wasn't my leak, that sort of thing. And I asked what the mod team's response should be, and whether we should kind of leave new users to hang in the wind as far as figuring the tool out, or whether we should help them out, that sort of thing. And Dave's main concern was keeping the workshop clean from those edits that used modded moves, and the whole team was really grateful that I had convinced Obvious Excitement to not allow for those edits to be uploaded by requiring his mod to require the mod suite. So, I don't think that Spike is ever going to be cool with modded edits entering the workshop. And if they're not cool with it, even though I could allow it, I'm just not going to. It just creates a whole bucket of worms that they have to deal with, that I have to deal with. What I may do in the future, and it wouldn't be till again after Spike stopped working on the game. So, we're talking maybe 18 months off, 2 years off. Would be to allow an export and import for edits. So you could just export them as a file, like a single file per edit, and share that, and then you could import it again, and your game would just load it up like it was a regular edit, and everything would be good. And so that's a possibility in the future, for sharing modded edits, but you will never be able to do it on the workshop at this point, unless Spike changes their opinion on modded stuff on the workshop. So, but yeah, so that looks like that answered your next question too. But yeah, that's always been my idea to do that. Um, is to allow them to be dumped to a file and shared that way. The reason that I don't want to do it before Spike stops working on the game is it gives pirated copies of the game a way to share edits. And I know that's a minor thing, but that is being able to use those sort of edit sharing features can be the difference between somebody pirating the game and then later buying it, or pirating the game and then just using the pirated copy. Because the online play isn't going. I mean, it's garbage. No one is going to buy this game so that they can play online. So really, it's the edit sharing that sells a legit copy of the game. So I don't want to take that away from Spike until they're no longer supporting the game, I guess you could say. So that's kind of where I am with that. And I know, like I said, part of me wants them to be done sooner rather than later, but I also know that that's probably not going to happen, that they're probably going to work on the game for quite a while. So, it's a distant thing. I understand you're wanting to keep a professional working relationship with Spike, and I can agree that because we want to remain in the good graces, so to speak. Yeah, I mean that's always been my thing with the mods is that I can do a lot of stuff that they probably don't intend me to do, or that they wouldn't want lots of people being like. I have loaded up Fire Promoter already. I can't play it yet. It's not playable in the current state that they've released publicly, but I can load it. You know, and I'm sure that they wouldn't want me to release that. They wouldn't want people to be able to load up Fire Promoter, even though it isn't playable yet, because there's going to come a point when and it could be when they update this in August, that it is playable with the code that they have in there, and they don't want people getting into it. So, yeah, I've always tried to keep that stuff, out of the public hands, and to maintain a good working relationship. Because let's be honest, I mean, they don't have to allow me to do what I do as far as mods. They could say, no, we don't support this at all. They could make a big deal about not supporting it. They could obfuscate their code. They could make it a giant pain to mod. But they don't. So I definitely don't want to do anything that's going to, to upset them on purpose, And, like, I'm sure there are some things that they wish, like the edit parts. So one of the things that I was talking about earlier that is in there that you guys can't use, but it exists, is an edit part creator. It's basically like a paint tool for parts. And I know that they want to release something like that, and whether they ever will is up in the air. But I'm sure they're not super thrilled that I released a part, something that allows you to add in edit parts. The gray area there is that I don't use their official tool to do it, so they don't have a lot of ground to stand on to ask me not to do it, so they haven't. But with the new moves, I was very very open with them that I was using their WasaMake tool, to make the moves, and so they were like, "Hey, we don't really want you to, to make that public, so please don't. We'll let you continue to do." To release the move pack that you guys have been working on, and to get all of the moves that you've put time and effort into making out there. But then after that, could you please stop? So, because I was using their tool, they were like, well, don't do that, please. But so I know that there are some things that I'm kind of stepping on their toes about, and they're being gracious enough not to be jerky about it. So, yeah, definitely I want to keep a good working relationship. What was the devs' feelings towards more people using WasaMake? Are they plan on stopping? No, they're. To be honest, I think that they're happy that people are finding things, and that there's an interest in it, because it means that they did something right on some level. They just know that it's not finished, 2, it's not entirely stable, 3, it's not ready for public consumption. So they just don't want, their concern isn't so much that people are using it, it's that people don't break things with it for other people. I think that's their biggest concern with that sort of thing. And so no, they weren't really mad, or I got no indication that they were going to pull it or stop supporting it or anything like that. I got more of the idea that it's not ready, and so they really don't want to deal with the headache of having to support it at this point. So they would prefer that we kept it to ourselves and didn't publicly release it. But they were when I told them that part of that compromise that I had made with the obvious excitement, when to keep modded wrestlers off the workshop, was that I would keep his link live in my Discord, which meant that people could download the mod. They were gracious that I had the foresight to look ahead for the workshop, and they were not mad that I left the link live. I even told them I'd pull the link if they didn't want it to be there, but they were fine with the link staying up. So they're not really mad that everyone has access to it. I think they're just trying to mitigate damage and keep it at a low level, because the tool isn't entirely ready for public release, which is pretty obvious to anyone who's used it. What's your favorite in-game move? I'm trying to think. I like the brass knuckle punch. I think that's one of the coolest things I've seen in a while in Fire Pro. I really like that move. I think that would probably be my favorite. The question about all these hidden creation modes, how long have they been in development based on the UI features and functionality alone? One would think that all were planned around the time of returns. So the Wazamake is the one that has the most daunting UI. The other stuff that's in the game, they look like they belong in Fire Pro World. So I could definitely... Wazamake is really the only one that looks that way to me. The rest of them are pretty modern looking. I think some of them I don't understand the point of them, but maybe we'll see in the future here, depending on what they add and what they don't. So, Parts Creator would be great for the community as a whole. So I hope they release those tools. To be 100% honest, I'm not. I don't think that what they've got in the pipe is going to be any better than just using Photoshop. So I couldn't honestly tell you that it would be any better for the community than what I've got going on in the mod suite now. So yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see what they do with it. So yeah, we'll have to see. I don't know. I can't. It's not usable in its current state for anything other than, just general fucking around. So I can't tell you if it would be easier or better or whatever. And there's already an abundance of nice parts made with the mod suite. So I don't know. I don't know whether it would be a distraction or a good thing. And we'll have to see. What's my favorite match type? Honestly, I play regular one-on-one matches in Fire Pro most of the time. Every once in a while, I do a tag team match, but I don't really mess around with the specialty matches. Are really rare. It's really rare for me to run them. I think there would still be an audience for official move parts edit tools. Modding them currently doesn't seem like something many people want to do themselves. Everyone wants to create new parts and tools, but only if it's hassle-free. Yeah, I mean, that's something that the mod team used to joke around, or the move team used to joke around about before this stuff went public. Everybody wanted to know how to do it, and if you remember, there were a couple of real cunt-face assholes on the board that, accused me of shit like, oh, well, you're fucking, you're monopolizing the modding community for not telling us how to do that, and all this other just absolute rancid garbage. And, we used to joke, like, well, even if this stuff got out there, because it's such a pain in the ass, how many fucking moves would these people make? They want it, but they don't understand what they're asking for. It's not like the fucking, SmackDown versus Raw finisher creator garbage, And so, now that it's out there, I'm looking, we have a little section for Waka Maze on my Discord, and I think maybe 2 or 3 people have made moves that were not part of the move team since the tool has been released, and it was released like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So, it's it's nice and it's cool and all that we can do it, but it's never going to be hassle free. I mean, this is a sprite based game. It's not like there are no 3D models to deal with, so you have to animate the sprite, and the only way to animate the sprite is to do it by hand, and to do it by hand is a pain in the ass. So it's never going to be hassle free, no matter what they release. And same deal with parts. It will never be hassle free because you have to draw every part at every angle, and it will be that way no matter what they release, because that's just the way that sprites work. It doesn't matter what sprite-based game you're working with. If you look up a sprite sheet tool on Steam or on Google, and you'll see you have to draw the sprite at every angle. There's no getting around it. So, it will never be hassle free ever. It took me 5 days to get a broken move to load in my game. Be on the lookout for my first move in August. Yeah, I mean that's about what it's like. And to be honest, we have been the move team has basically been given the direction that we're pretty much supposed to let newcomers figure the tool out on its own. Spike would appreciate it if we didn't go too into helping people any more than we have already, because things might change in the future and whatever. So basically, y'all are on your own. Oh, I'm getting Steam messages. So yeah, and it's not like I'm trying to be a jerk about it. It's just, like I said before, I'm trying to keep a good working relationship with Spike, and that means, deferring to their requests unless their requests are ridiculous. So I helped out a lot when it first came out before we had the dictum to not do that. And at this point now, I'm just going to take a back seat, and, y'all are welcome to help yourselves on the Wakamaze Questions channel. But I don't think you're going to get much input from the move team at this point, because we've been asked not to, and most of us are pretty good with keeping to Spike's wishes, so. About the only thing I'd like is a damn preview for the move, but I don't mind having to do it by hand. Yeah, there are lots of things that they could add to that tool to make it nicer and easier to use and more friendly. But no matter what they did, it would still be a pain in the ass. That's just the way it is, so. Yeah, I mean, and if you look at a lot of the moves, I mean, some of them are the ones that we released even are not very good. I mean, I'm not trying to shit on any of us, because I know, like, my pop-up pile driver looks like absolute garbage, and I'd be surprised if anyone is using it. But it's just some of those moves don't look very good because we're still we were still learning and are still learning some of how to do or how to get things working in Wazamake, just like anybody else. So, it's just that's the way it is. So, yeah, keeping the peace between modders and developers is important. Look at all the PC games that got modding nuked. Yeah. I don't know of any of them that have been completely shut down. But at the same time, I don't feel like I feel like it's their game. I'm just playing around with their game. So I should give them deference when it comes to things that they ask me not to do, or whatever, because really it's their vision. And if I really want to push something, then I can just wait until they're not actively working on it anymore, until they've moved on and they have less of an interest or a say in what gets done in the game at that point. I've been playing these games, like I said earlier, for 21 or 22 years. I'm not going anywhere. I'll be around. So it doesn't really matter if I can if I have to wait 18 months or 24 months or 36 months before I can implement something that I'd really like to see. It'll get done eventually. So it's just, why piss them off if I can just show a little patience, And I think that a lot of people could probably learn from just patience, just have some. It's important. You don't need everything right away. So I've got a story about Skyrim, since somebody brought up Skyrim modding. I modded for Skyrim. I wrote this mod called Home Construction and Decoration, which was basically like The Sims in fucking Skyrim. It allowed you to place a house anywhere. It allowed you to decorate the house anyway, instead of the Hearthfire method, which just enabled hidden stuff. This allowed you to really set it up however you wanted to, and decorate it however you wanted to, and build it anywhere you wanted to. And so it was a pretty popular mod for Skyrim. And I did that all before they went into this whole ridiculous Creators Club fucking garbage and their paid modding initiative shit. And so I was a pretty active part of that modding community when that whole thing came up. And so when it came up, I addressed a bunch of issues that I had with their potential modding, their paid modding. Like, well, if you have a mod and somebody has paid for it, what obligation does the author have to keep it updated? What obligation does Bethesda have to keep their updates to the game from breaking mods that are paid? Things like that. And rather than address these problems, they told me that I was being a rabble-rouser and not supporting their decision, and they literally banned me from their website, their forums. And then, you fast forward, several months after they launched the thing, and they realize that all of these things that me and a couple other people were legitimately asking were actual fucking issues. Because if people paid for something and you break it, then whose obligation is it to fix it? And so they eventually went back on their paid modding crap, but I think there were 3 or 4 of us who got banned, and not a single one of us got a "hey, you were right, we're sorry," or anything like that. I'm still banned from the Bethesda forums. I got banned from the Nexus forums because I was banned on the Bethesda forums. So I'm not allowed to update or post on the fucking Skyrim Nexus or whatever fucking junk that is. So I basically made a vow that I will not pay for another Bethesda game as long as they're a company. I will pirate their games. I will encourage everyone else to pirate their games, because they are fucking scum of the earth, and fuck them. So if you ever want to play a Bethesda game, just download that shit for free. Fuck them. Fuck them. Fuck them. Okay, so that's my Skyrim story. Let's move on. I know that this may seem ridiculous, but Microsoft has openly talked about supporting mods for games lately. Do you think Spike may release Fire Pro to Microsoft and then allow the enabling for mods for it? By the way, this is more of a pissing in the wind thing, because I know it's highly unlikely. No, I don't. Spike is a Japanese company. Microsoft is not a Japanese company. Japanese developers and software, it's just different. It's a different culture. Even Dave and me have talked about this, where he was really surprised how open they were to mods, because even in Spike's other games with other developing teams, because he works on multiple games with multiple teams, they are very much not pro modding. It's just not in Japanese software companies' nature to be real supportive of this. And so, so no, I don't see that happening. It's just, on top of that, I don't think Microsoft has a big foothold in Japan where, so it would be like, it just wouldn't be that reasonable of a situation for them to do. So yeah, I don't see that happening. I finally made a wake up taunt work, so I'm happy. If the rest of my moves look like trash, but the backflip cutter does look cool. Yeah, I saw that one in the Wakamaze questions forum there, and it is a pretty interesting move. I'm not sure that I'm sold on the angle that you previewed it from, because that angle tends to make moves look off. So it may look totally different at the default angle or at one of the angles that don't make the moves look totally off. But it is a cool concept, and I'm glad that you're working on it. And the wake up taunt thing would, because you can't just pick a wake up taunt would be easier to do in the code than it would be to do as new moves, because you'd really have to animate every taunt as a down move with the opponent getting up, in order for it to really be utilized in a good way. And so yeah, I just don't see that being, it's cool to have one and being like, yeah, it can be done, but then when you think about like what you would have to do to really make it complete, it hits a lot of work. So but yeah, I could get in there and write a code that that set the downtime to 0 whenever, the up taunt was used or something and the opponent was down. That would literally take maybe 3 or 4 lines of code. So I think that would be a better way to do that if it's something you're interested in. And maybe that's something that you could delve into yourself if you're interested in getting into modding, because it would be a fairly simple mod to do, and then you could release something new to the community yourself. So, but if you're interested in doing that, in tackling that at any point, that's what the Modding Talk channel is for on the Mod Suite Testing Ground Discord server. You can pop in there, and we share code, we share ideas, that sort of thing. So, but yeah, it just depends on what you want to do with it. You can, like I said, you can do it the way you did it, but in order to make it complete so that you could use any taunt that might work as a wake up taunt as a wake up taunt, you'd have to really animate all of those taunts as, opponent down, both face up and face down. Yeah, so. Yeah, like I said, if you're interested in learning how to mod, pop into that Modding Talk forum. There are some people like Ace who have, he did the attire extension mod. I don't think he had a whole lot of programming experience before he delved into modding. So it's not that you have to, you don't have to be some code guru to get into it. You just have to have the dedication to not give up when your shit fails, because it will fail. Sometimes spectacularly. So, you just have to have the desire to push through and to learn. All right, well, thank you for the questions, Becoming the Cadaver. It was nice to have somebody new in here asking newer questions, so, so that was good. And enjoy the rest of your night. Somebody mentioned the modding tutorials that I had done. That's true. The modding tutorials are there, and they walk you through. I mean, I've gone back over them, and there's some stuff that I missed that I shouldn't have, and they're not perfect, but they're great for getting you started. They're great for getting you involved, and then you can join that modding talk channel on the Mod Suite Testing Ground Discord, and ask questions, and I'm usually happy to help, despite being a horrible modding community monopolizing jackass. I'm usually happy to help. Most of the time, I'm happy to even write your code for you. Whatever it takes to get your vision out there. Usually I'm happy to help. So, new logic, like what kind of new logic? Because that may or may not be a gigantic task. It depends on what you want. A ground style edit. Oh, yeah, yeah. I've got guys who mainly work ground stuff. Just not with Royal Ring, I guess. Royal Ring is a little more striky. Um, Royal Ring was intended to be somewhere between All Japan and New Japan, where it's a little head droppy, it's a little striky, less heavy on the submissions than New Japan, but a little more heavy than All Japan ever was, that sort of thing. So a lot of the edits that I've released to the public are not in that style, just because they're designed to work that kind of Royal Ring style that I had envisioned. So, but yeah, there were definitely some groundy guys. Yujiro Hashin was one of my favorite in that style. He was an old edit. I think I released him in returns he was a Royal Ring edit in returns too, but he worked a more ground based style. Would it be possible to set new conditions for triggering like them in the 8? No. So the way that I'm going to get technical. Some of you may not understand this. Some of you may eventually learn to understand this. If you want to kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about, you can poke around in ILSpy. In the player controller AI class, there is I'm looking it up now just so I can see what it's called, so I don't give you the wrong information. But there is I think it's called Process Priorities or something like that. Process Priority Act. And you'll be able to kind of follow how priorities are processed. So, but the way it works is every time you do a move successfully, it stores which skill slot, which move slot you use to do that move, like left and X, let's say. It'll store that information, and then it checks through all of your priorities to see if any priorities start or are triggered by left X. So when you block a move, it doesn't link to a skill slot, so there would be nothing to check against in that case. So there would be no way to add those as triggers to start a priority. So I hope that makes sense. Like I said, it's I got a little bit on the technical side about how priorities are started. So, but yeah, and that's one reason why you can't start a priority with a run to the ropes, because even though run is a button press, it doesn't trigger a skill to be saved in that last skill variable that every player has, and so it can't be checked for. So, and the strange thing is in Spike's other games. So, King of the Colosseum doesn't have full-on priorities, but it does have a lot of linkage to things. Like, you can say, well, if he runs to the ropes, I want him to do this move. If he just runs, I want him to do this move instead. So it's weird that they didn't implement some stuff that came up in King of the Colosseum 2 and the way that its logic worked into Fire Pro. because I mean, let's face it, they're essentially the same game with a slightly different engine as far as logic is concerned. So I'm very surprised that they didn't move stuff between the two. Who is the one edit throughout your entire playtime, view time, um, that you just cannot stand? Is in Xbox Heat, not Heel Heat. Um, whew, I'm trying to think, and I, I really don't know, to be honest. I, a lot of edits that I don't like have been, I've been pretty vocal about it and had them fixed, or they get fixed because somebody was like, hey, your edit is not very good. It's loaded with big fucking move syndrome, or whatever. And so and people are like, oh shit, I didn't even realize that. Like, how can I work that out? And so you go through it. Um, I fucking I don't like Nine. I know he's designed to be that way, but the watching his match, it's just boring. It's boring, and basically any edit that's I don't what's Senator's edit, the girl who fucking never loses. She's kind of big. I can't remember her fucking name. Yeah, her Nine. Um, I know that Dawnbreaker has an edit or two like that they're just designed to be over the top. Voodoo's gonna get mad at me, but that one lady edit that he has, that just I don't know, the demon woman. I don't like her. No offense. But yeah, just those edits. I don't like those edits. I get that they have a place and a time and everything, but I just don't like them. So, but there you go. You forced me to single some shit out, so I did. The replays, no. I mean, how would you replay it? It's not stored anywhere. Um, I don't I don't know how. I don't know what Aki used to store that information. If it's a video, like they saved a little video, like a 20-second video to the to like the SRAM or whatever it was on the 64 carts. I don't know, and it just constantly overwrote itself. I don't know. But FirePro isn't set up for any of that, and so getting it to replay itself, it's bad for the would be um, yeah, getting it to replay would be a big to do that I'm not sure how you would do it. Um, I think that Unity might have some plugins or some so even maybe even native support for um, maybe recording video. So it's totally possible to do. I just don't know how you would do it off the top of my head. So viciously shoots on community hosses. Yeah, yeah, I suppose I did. And I'm not. I mean, like I said, I know that they have a place. I know that they have a. And to be fair, like I don't like Braun Strowman or Brock Lesnar or Roman Reigns or any of those guys that never lose in real life either. They're just boring to me. I don't like them. I find them to be, um, being a hoss is usually a substitute for being talented. Like, you're big and you're not talented, so we can still do something with you. We can make you a hoss, but um, you know, it doesn't encourage them to get any better or put on any better matches. And I, meh, and I know that those people have a place in the real world, of wrestling too. So it's not that I hate that they exist. It's just that I don't personally like them. I was never much of an Undertaker fan. I don't dislike him. Until recently, so his retirement thing at WrestleMania, the way that they handle, I mean, I don't like that he lost to Roman Reigns, I guess. That was kind of, whatever. He didn't really need to drop that match. But when he retired, I thought that they handled that really well. The hanging of the gloves and all of that stuff. I thought that was really a good way for him to go out. And then he stayed out for 9 months, and then he's back again. It's just like, fuck you, whatever, asshole. You've made more money than you could possibly fucking spend at this point. You don't have any need to come back, and you just ruined one of the most interesting one of the most meaningful things you've ever done in your fucking career by coming back and shitting all over it. So whatever. Anyway, that's my Undertaker rant. Yeah, Voodoo, the one in red. I can't remember her name. Poorly invested a lot of money into Cole. Yeah, well, that's not anyone's fault, but his. But no, I mean, I'm not up with wrestlers' personal lives. I don't know. I just assumed that the dude, he's been with the WWE in a major position for a long time, and so he's made a lot of money, and he didn't. I don't know. He could have come back in some other capacity. And to come back as a wrestler, I just felt like shit all over that angle, and I thought that angle was well done, and I just don't think that they needed to shit. And who gives a fuck if he comes back at this fucking point? He's already lost at WrestleMania. He's never going to be a champion. It's like, who gives a shit? He's just there as a fucking parody of his old, the whole thing is just fucking poorly done. It would be like Bret Hart coming back at this point. Who gives a shit? It's not the same. It's not worth it. The whole thing is just fucking stupid. Yeah, and I mean, if he had waited, but that's the thing is, I mean, could Undertaker have waited waited 3 or 4 years and then come back? Probably not. I mean, the guy's getting old. But, really, I don't know. I just didn't see it as a necessity. I was kind of, annoyed by it. I felt betrayed, I guess, because the angle was done well, and I really thought he was done. And then they're just like, nope, swerved you, but it's like, no, that's not a swerve. It's not a swerve to tell us something and then do the opposite. That's just bullshit, You're not setting us up to not expect him to, anyway. It was just stupid. And he's a shell of his former self. He's still trying his best to do everything that he used to do and to have the matches that he used to have, but he doesn't. And it not only doesn't he, but it's stupid for him to try. I mean, the dude, he was 56 or something? I mean, Jesus Christ, just give it a break, I don't know. Yeah, anyway. Saw a YouTuber showing off your Rumble mod and has over 24,000 views, and many positive comments. What's your feeling on seeing? I actually commented on that. I like Chris Danger, Chris Denker, Denk Ops. I've watched some of his, his WWE 2K videos. Guy's got a lot of passion for wrestling games. He has always been fairly honest about their shortcomings, like when he's playing the WWE games, but he still has a good time with them, and I can relate to that because I'm exactly the same way. I still enjoy the WWE games. Even though I've got a new Fire Pro game, I still enjoy the WWE games. They're different they're different. They're different games. There's no need to pick sides but it'd be stupid not to point out the flaws in, and he's always been good with that, and so I've always liked his stuff. And so, I commented on his video that I was really excited to see such a like a large scale wrestling game YouTuber, put the mod suite over, and I would be happy to, entertain suggestions or comments or questions if he had any in the future, or even if he had a request, for his upcoming DZW series or whatever. I'm more than happy to work with him the same way that I've been happy to work with the Super Chat Fight League guys. Um, and so I was definitely happy to see it because it's nice to get that recognition from somebody who is widely respected, and even though he's not like the biggest name in the Fire Pro community, as far as YouTube wrestling gamers are concerned, he's a pretty big deal. He gets invited to the 2K preview things, and so yeah, it was a big deal. It was really cool. But at the same time, as soon as that happened, I started getting they're not Steam messages, but YouTube notifications and things, because I posted that thing that said, like, I'd be happy to help with anything, or, that. So I made it obvious, I guess, that I was the mod author. And I started to get stupid like YouTube notifications about, like, how to, could you write a mod that allowed me to, transfer wrestlers between save games, obviously pirates, that sort of thing. So on one hand, it's really cool, and I'm super glad for it, and I'm glad to get the attention. On some levels. On other levels, I'm not a people person. I think I've made that pretty clear throughout the years. I'm personable, like I know how to be a people person. I just prefer not to be. And so, when I get a bunch of stupid questions, it can really drive me up the wall, I guess. So there's that. If I could choose a feature from King of Colosseum to port into Fire Pro, what would it be? Um, the clutch system and the logic that comes with it. I really like the clutch system. I don't know how they would do it in Fire Pro. I think what they would have to do is they do the initial lockup, and then you'd go into a clutch based on which button you pressed during the lockup animation, and then you do a move from there. And that would be what I would bring over. I would do the clutch system and the logic that went with the clutch system. Is there a mod to which the color of the barricade... I think that you're trying to ask, is there a mod that allows you to change the color of the barricades? In which case, yes. You have to replace the textures using the ring mat database. But that would be how you would have to do that. Is you have to use the default textures provided in the mod suite to create your own textures, and then use that to change the color, because you can't just change the color in with like a slider. Or something like that. They're textured, so you would have to change the color in the textures. Last question. Are they going to have a digital pre-order for the PS4? I'm not seeing it at the moment. Your guess is as good as mine, to be honest. I don't know. I don't know what their plans are with that. I have stated bunches of times that I'm probably not even going to buy a PS4 copy of the game. And so unless someone buys one for me, which I guess is a possibility because I've had offers of people to buy the Takayama DLC if I didn't have it, which I did already, and the game itself, and that sort of thing. So unless somebody buys it for me, I'm not even going to pick it up. It just, the PS4 doesn't interest me very much. So I really don't know. I haven't been following that whole thing, basically. King of Colosseum 2 has the best system in any wrestling game. I agree. Um, King of Colosseum 2, I think, was the funnest. Hold on, my son is wanting something. Hold on 1 second, guys. Okay, I'm back. Um, I fed him fish and chips earlier, but he's still hungry, apparently. He must be having a growth spurt or something, so. Oh, yeah, I used that laughing sample in, from King of Colosseum. Oh, what the hell happened here? Holy. That doesn't need to be that big. I wonder how that happened. There we go. But yeah, um, I used that laughing track for my song on, what was it, Fire Pro Music, the one that Sunny Bone did. Um, I I ripped a bunch of stuff from King of Colosseum 2 for that. Um, Man, it's been a long time since I've messed around with King of Colosseum. I'd love to get it working like on a real console again. Like the emulators, I don't know. There's just something about it just doesn't feel the same. Even though I have a PS4 controller hooked up to my computer and everything, it doesn't feel the same. So the ladder match when. Um, so I'm actually going to give a serious answer to this because I tried to do that. I tried adding a ladder just as a joke. I tried adding a ladder object that I had got for free off of the Unity Engine store to the scene just to see if I could do it, and it would not load. It loaded like if I went and dumped all of the objects in the scene, it noticed the ladder, but it would not appear. I could not get it to display. So serious answer to that, and I know it was a joke question, is probably never. Because I don't. I tried it in a, you know, it loads in every other Unity scene. It loads, so I really don't know. I don't know why it wasn't loading. I don't know what was causing it not to display. Um, so probably never. Yeah, the commentary for King of Colosseum. Somebody had said the commentary is so good in regards to King of Colosseum. That was the impetus for me to make the commentary mod. I was hoping that someone would rip all of the commentary from King of Colosseum and package it up and release it for Fire Pro. And Phil Parent ripped, I think it was Phil, ripped all of the commentary for King of Colosseum, but then, there's that big process of renaming everything and etc. etc. So that never happened. Um, but that was the goal, I guess you could say. Like that was really what I had in mind when I was doing the commentary mod. And I never, like I said, I never finished um, the commentary mod because I got busy with other stuff. I think I was working on the commentary mod during the first Ask Me Anything when the free cam was suggested, and so I took a break and started that, and that kind of blew up, I guess. Um, you know, I use the free cam quite a bit in my own stuff. I have an AI set up, so it changes the angle based on what's going on in the ring and everything. But I never I never expected it to take off as much as it did. It's definitely been one of the biggest mods as far as popularity that I had ever done. And so yeah, there was a it just took priority, and then I never went back to the commentary mod. I think really all that needs to be done is I need to finish up the individual wrestler text file or text stuff, and the text stuff in general. I think the sound stuff is pretty much done in regards to the commentary mod. Like all of that stuff loads and works mostly how I intended it to. I think that yeah, there's still a couple of bugs. Somebody just mentioned the out of ring stuff is kind of buggy, and yeah, I think that definitely
I have
is.
a reminder for Carl.
Yeah, my Google is reminding me that I need to take my medicine tonight. Anyway, so it is buggy in some aspects still, but it generally works. So I just never went back to it. I hope to at some point, but I don't know. The concept doesn't interest me a whole lot right now, so I just haven't gone back to it. I really want a better crowd sound. Um, yeah, that's something Spike would have to do. I mean, you could do it with a mod, but I don't know. It seems like that's something that you should petition Spike for. That's not something that modding should have to fix. And to be fair, the crowd sound in World is better than the crowd sound in Returns. So, there's that. And, yeah, Zinsky had made a crowd track for sure. And I think someone else had too, actually. I think there's two of them out there. But, it's Spike has never been great on the audio end, except for the commentary in King of Colosseum. I really think that that's the only decent audio that Spike has ever done is the King of Colosseum 2 announcer audio. They did a really good job with that. But then, I mean, the crowd is only okay in King of Colosseum. It's still better than it is in Fire Pro, but it's still only okay, and everything is so compressed in that game, that it takes a little bit away from it too. But they've never been a big, especially with the Fire Pro games, they've never been great on the audio. So you can mute the crowd, and I don't understand. I don't honestly have a problem with the crowd sound. I think they sound fine. Um, so you know, I don't really know what the issue is. And I never background music in a wrestling game is like sacrilege to me. I don't why anybody would want to have music playing in the game while you've got a wrestling match going on. I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It ruins the experience. So there's like I won't even watch people who stream with the background on. Like I'll mute them. Or I just won't watch it. It's that important to me that there's no background noise. So, but it's a personal preference. So, is that the only time you're gonna chime in? Is when I viciously shoot on something? I mean, if you want to use it, that's up to you. I just probably won't watch much of your stream if it's heavy on the background music. I sometimes I'll go into Don's stream if he's the only one streaming at night, and I generally just mute him, and that's how I manage that. But usually, if people have background music, yeah, it's a huge turnoff, and I'm not interested. So. But, do what you want. It's your stream, so I'm out of mod suggestions. Well, yeah, I mean, that's one thing that the mod suite's definitely been slowing down because at this point, I think I've done almost everything that I really wanted to do. And there's always going to be something that I'm just like, holy shit, I should see if I can do this, or that's a good idea, or, whatever. But for the most part, like, I've done everything that I want to do, and especially now that I've got working, what do you call it? The title match entrances, because that was one thing that I had always thought about doing, but there were never any title parts until the Avenger 3 made them with the custom edit part mod. And so now that there are title parts, I felt like it was worth a shot doing that. And to be fair, I probably will expand that to encompass all 4 of the default attires, so you no longer have to use up an attire slot for an entrance attire. And at that point, like, I'm out of ideas at this point. Like, I don't know what else to do with the mod suite, and I'm sure that there's other stuff that could be done, and somebody will bring up something in the future, and I'll be like, shit, that's a good idea. But for now, I'm out of ideas, which is why it's been pretty slow on the mod front. Yeah, the Royal Rumble thing took... I mean, I actually have... If I could show my my projects folder for Visual Studio, I probably have about 10 or 12 attempts at a Rumble mod that had all failed. So, it was something that I had been working on pretty much since I started modding, and finally clicked with the mod that got released. So, it definitely is not something that I was expecting. Honestly, when I started that one, I didn't expect to pull that off. So I'm glad that it worked. UWFI or Pancrase? UWFI. UWFI is one of my favorite things to watch ever. I have like all 80 English commentary UWFI tapings on my computer. Gary Albright is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. UWFI just whoops on Pancrase, in my opinion. Title entrances, ? Yeah, so it's a mod that I am working on. It's out in public testing right now in the Mod Suite testing ground. If you look in the general channel, I posted a test version of the Mod Suite with it. But basically what it does is it allows you to create a entrance attire that's linked to a title, and then if that wrestler, and then the mod will look through all of your titles, and if that wrestler is the champion, the holder of that title, it will use that entrance attire instead of the normal attire or entrance attire, depending on whether you use the entrance mod or not. So it basically allows you to set up attire where they have the title around their waist using Avenger 3's title parts that he made for the custom edit part mod, and then to dump those and have the game reload them when they're the champion and are appropriate. And so that was one of the big issues that I had always had is you could set it to attire 4 or whatever, but he's not always going to be the champion, so then you always have one wasted attire. But this allows you to dump them to a file on your computer and then load it back in when it's appropriate, and so it doesn't take up an edit slot. And that's why I want to also expand it for the, attires 1 through 4, and it will just load them back in as necessary, without taking up one of the 4 like attire slots as an entrance attire. So, yeah, that has real belts. Hold on. Y'all are forcing me to do this, I suppose. Let's do this real quick. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. It'll take a second for it to load up. But I guess we're getting to the end of this kind of anyway, because the questions are slowing down. While this loads up, I'm going to answer some of the other questions here. I've never liked how, when a submission of victory occurs, the ref just immediately waving for the bell. Could a mod be made where there's a certain amount of baked-in struggle before the tap happens, even when the requirements for a tap have been met? I hope that makes sense. Yeah, probably, but it would require a lot of work, and I'm not sure that it would look as good as you would want it to. Because the animations just aren't set up for struggle, they're just a loop of the damage animation, essentially. So, it probably wouldn't work like you would want it to. At least not without a complete reanimation of the moves, and, that's not going to happen. So, yeah, it's possible it would just be a pain. Any update to your career mode mod? No, I haven't worked on it in a little while because while I was working on it, the move creator thing had been leaked, and that kind of took priority in dealing with that. And then because it had been leaked, it got my interest peaked in trying to figure out why the move creator or why the move loading mod, the move pack mod that I had released, was so heavy on RAM. Because Spike can literally load, I think there are 4,000 something moves in Fire Pro, including reversals and other animations. And they can load that all in under a gigabyte. But when I start loading my own moves, I load just under 200, and it takes a gigabyte. So I was trying to figure out what the hell the discrepancy is. Why does it take me so much more RAM to load these moves? And it turns out that they're loading a different version of move files, which don't include the forms or anything else, because they don't need them. The forms are already included in the game files, so they don't need to have individual forms for every one of their moves anymore. But my moves, the custom moves, do. They need those form files or they won't work. So that's why. But it took me a long time to figure that out. And so that's literally pretty much the only thing I've been doing, aside from what I'm just about to show you here. So I'm going to use these guys as an example. They're my tag team champions. But if you go in here and you check their second appearance, they have 2 appearances, I believe. Their normal entrances, see, and their regular wrestling attire. But they don't have a title attire, you'll notice. And so this title mod allows me to do things like this. let's put them in with me and... Oh, crap. I did that on the wrong side because I'm not paying attention. And then I put in the wrong guy. I am just all over the place right now. There we go. And then over here will be me. We'll do me. And everybody's favorite Japanese guy from Texas. To be totally honest, I am... the new UI is nothing more than a reskin as far as I can tell, and as unfortunate as that is, I'm going to turn this down. Okay, so I had to turn that down on my end. I hope that it's still reasonably volumed on your end and you can hear me talking, so if somebody would let me know, that'd be good. But, so the new UI doesn't look like anything more than a reskin to me, and that's really unfortunate, so I just don't give a shit about it. But as you can see, when I showed you their entrance attire, they did not have titles. But then they have titles when they come out because they're the tag team champions. And it also allows... so these are both entrance attires for non-champions. And so it allows those to work correctly as well, which Ace's attire extension mod disables these unless I was to remake them. So... But that's what I've been working on in the mod suite when I'm not trying to figure out why I was using so much RAM with the move pack. And so yeah, that's what's going on with my mod stuff now. That's my current project. And like I said, I want to expand it. So when I showed off the Rough Riders in the edit mode, they both had entrance attire where they have the cowboy hat and the vests on. I want to eventually be able to remove the need to use an attire slot for those entrance attires as well, and just tie them into the same thing that I did for the titles, where it just loads it from a file on your computer, and as opposed to needing it to be an in-game attire. That way you still have 4 attire slots that you can use for actual wrestling attire. And once I do that, then I will probably release the mod again. Or release an update to the mod suite with, with that feature in a public version. Because right now it's in public testing. So if you want to make your own titles and have wrestlers come out, you can grab this version in the Mod Suite Testing Ground Discord. It's posted in the general channel as a test version. Just, you'll have to scroll up a little bit, but it's there. So, but that's what I've been working on, and kind of my future plan for it. It won't allow, like Ace's attire extension mod allows for an unlimited amount of attires, and this won't do that. This will only, you'll still have to use the 4 that are in game, but it'll allow you to cut out the need to make entrance attire for them and have that take up a slot. Yes, there is a mod for that. I'm not sure that you are going to like how difficult it is, but yes. So there is a mod that I had put out as part of the mod suite. It's called custom edit parts, and you can make your own face paint. You can make anything. I made cowboy hats for the 2 wrestlers in the black. You can make anything you want, but you have to draw the part at up to, I think that the highest has 96 different angles that you have to draw the part at. So it's not easy to do. So you can create anything you want. You just have to be dedicated to doing it and put in the time, and it is not an easy thing to do because it's a sprite-based game. You can't just create a part and then have it rotate with the model. So Yeah, Photoshop. You have to use Photoshop. Yeah, that's so. I just clicked on that link that TT Robbins provided, and yeah, that's what I'm talking about right there. Um, you and there's a lot of really cool parts in there. Most of them being real. You know, guy like somebody made Ultimate Warrior's face paints and tassels and all of that stuff. And then there's some stuff that's just generic. So there's a good mix of both being released right now, and the community has actually surprised me pretty heavily with how much they have put out for that, considering how difficult it is. So no, it doesn't have to be Adobe. You can use whatever paint program you want as long as it can export to a ping with transparency. Yeah, GIMP would work. It like I said, as long as it exports to a ping with transparency, it will work. So, and the tutorial is geared to Photoshop, and I mentioned Photoshop specifically in the thread because that's what I use. I got a discount on Photoshop because I'm a college student, so I have I get college prices on Photoshop, so I think it cost me something like $30, so not bad. But if you can't afford the ridiculously priced Photoshop, then you can definitely do it. You could definitely do it with GIMP, or I think even Paint.net would work, to be honest. So, and as far as Fire Pro, I mean, I love Fire Pro. I'd probably play it if even if we couldn't mod it. But now that we can mod it, I would never go back to playing it unmodded. So it makes a huge difference to have these things that for some reason the developers have either never put in, never thought of putting in, don't want to put in, whatever it is. And so, it makes a huge difference to have these things. And it is going to pause for a second while I do that, but then it will come back. There we go. I don't know why FreeCam wasn't checked anymore, so it wasn't updating the angles like it should have been. There we go. Now it's working good. For me, Vanilla Fire Pro is just, it's not like it's bad. What makes it so bad is knowing how much that can be done with it. Um, I really find it annoying that there's so much that they could do and they just haven't done. And I don't know why. So at this point, one of the biggest reasons that I have no interest in the PS4 version is because it's just going to be the default version. It's not going to have all of the cool stuff that I've become accustomed to, and I have no interest in that. None whatsoever. Yeah, all of my edits are on the workshop. I have I think I even have a whatchamacallit, oh, there's my shitty attempt at a crowd chant while I was testing it. It actually played in this match. They don't play in every match, so when they do play, I'm like, what the hell is that? And then I'm like, oh shit. Let's see. Um, So here is the link. That's my link to Royal Ring. Yeah, apron moves are part of the mod. The mod suite has them now. So, it's just one of those things that I was able to add in. Again, it was one of those things that I kept trying and failing at, and then all of a sudden I got it and it worked, and I was like, holy shit, awesome. So now it's a thing. Yeah, MOTW is that's something that I guess I've always been less of a game player and more of like a booker. Like, I'm not super interested in financials and stuff like that in wrestling games. I grew up on TNM. I don't know if any of you guys played TNM. I'm kind of, I think I'm older than a few of you. I don't know if I'm older than all of you, but I'm definitely older than a few of you. And so TNM wasn't really a thing when you were old enough to care about booking wrestling. But I grew up on TNM, and TNM, there was this quote about TNM and why people preferred TNM over like EWR or later Total, what is it, TEW, and it's because TNM was a tool that allowed you to tell your wrestling story, and EWR or TW is a game. And I always wanted a tool to be able to tell the wrestling story that I was interested in more than I wanted a game. So when I worked on, MOTW and getting it integrated in the game, I was more interested in getting like a tracking software, like a tool that allowed you to book a card and put a card together, but it wasn't going to bog you down with contracts and all of that other garbage. Which is also fun. Like I have a version that does that that stuff as well, but it's just I tend to use the version that doesn't implement that stuff because it's more interesting to me personally, and it fits the style that I'm looking for better than like a really gamey version that dealt with financials and TV deals and all of that stuff, which is, like I said, it's fun, but I guess it's not what I'm looking for. I'm surprised. Oh, he's not legal. I was going to say that was his finisher. I'm surprised I didn't give up there. But he's not the legal man, so that makes more sense. So, but yeah, I forget that some of this stuff probably some people haven't seen because not everybody updates every time I update the mod suite. But yeah, apron grapples were added a while back. The crowd chants are new. So there was a mod. The One of the first releases for the mod suite had this thing called the what is it? The ring mat database, and that expanded to allow you to change all of the textures in an arena, not just the ring. So you can mod the arena using the ring mat database as well. They're texture mods, so you have to redo the entire texture file. But it's not. Once you get used to it, it's not super hard to do. I have Royal Ring versions of all like 6 or whatever arenas in the game, so you can definitely do it if you just put in a little bit of time and you understand what it entails. See, that's popping up a little more often than I would. Like, it's really weird because when I did my singles matches testing it out, it never popped up. But it's popped up like I don't know what, that's the fourth time we've heard it in this match. So I need to adjust that because that's not intentional. And you could have more than one crowd chant for each wrestler. I only have that one for Zilla, so. No, it doesn't. I can answer that already. Honestly, as far as I can tell, it doesn't even. It will run one event a month, just like you will, and it just kind of tells you if a title changes hands, and that's it. That's the only information that you get from other companies, is if their champions change. And I don't know why you need to know that, but apparently they feel like you do, so. And it looks like that was time, and because I use the judging mod even on wrestling matches, it sounds like Zilla and Kiyoshi Takada won this one by judge's decision. Yup, unanimous decision for yeah, the crowd chant is. It's just "Let's Go Zilla." I was using this. God, what was it? It's a VST plugin that allows you to create a chorus out of a single voice. So I recorded myself saying "Let's Go Zilla," and then use that to duplicate it something like 30 times, and just as a test crowd chant. Oh no, it was a non-title match. I didn't set the titles on the line, so I just wanted to show the title mod. And let's see. So here's the actual what it looks like when you in the entrance attire form, there's this new little thing down here, and see, you can still set it up so Carlzilla still uses attire 4 when he comes out with attire 1, but you can still go to title options now, and let's say you pick Carlzilla, and then you pick the heavyweight. Let's say he ever wins the heavyweight championship, and you created a temporary costume where he wins the championship, and then you just hit dump, and it will dump a file out to your hard drive that contains that costume that you just created, and then you can go get rid of the costume or change it to whatever you want, so you don't have to use a costume file permanently. You can just temporarily use one to create an entrance, and then then you can get rid of it or use it for something else or whatever. But that's how that works. I just realized that you couldn't see the title options screen when it came up, so none of that made any sense. Let's see if I can show that real quick. Window capture, whatever. Nope, it's not letting me show that one, so there's not much I can do. That's the unfortunate thing about using OBS, is that any pop-up window is not necessarily is not necessarily displayed, and now it's just not displaying anything, so... Oh, that's why. What a piece of crap. But yeah, pop-up windows aren't captured in OBS, so you just have to deal with it, I guess. Yeah, the VST that I used it's a plugin for Audacity. I do have a YouTube channel, but this isn't posted to it yet, so feel free to ask questions. I mean, if I already answered it, I'll just give a shorter answer than I gave before and let you know, and then you can watch the video later, you know? It's not a big deal. Things seem to be dying down now at this point anyway, so, you know, ask away. I think most people have already asked what they want to ask. But, let's, I guess, start another match, just for the sake of having something in the background, since we do now. I don't know. We'll go with Eno and... Yamasaki. Catch me up on what I have missed. I don't know, rewatch the video when it's posted. I don't even remember everything that was asked. The oldest wrestling match that I can watch that I remember, I have seen a couple of things from the 50s. Some Buddy Rogers stuff, some... let's see, who else? Ox Baker. I think his match was in the 60s. But yeah, 50s and 60s is the earliest that I go back. Can new counters be created? No. They pull from a different bank, and I don't know how to add or manipulate that bank yet. And so, no, they cannot be added. You can change counters. The mod suite has a counter editor that allows you to change counters for moves, but you can't add new ones yet. Yeah, there's nothing that you're going to ask that's going to bother anybody, I don't think. I mean, I'm sure that some of the stuff I've answered tonight, I've answered on other Ask Me Anythings. I've answered, on other streams or in other places. So don't worry about it. I mean, just ask what you want to know. That's the best way to handle this. Andre Hogan, I think that was probably from WrestleMania 3. I think that was, what was that, 87? So I was about 5, I think, when that happened. So, that was probably the lead up to WrestleMania 3 was my introduction to wrestling. That was when I started to get interested in wrestling. So, I think I saw WrestleMania 3 live. I think that was the first WrestleMania that I ever watched. I think we got it on pay-per-view, so... Sammartino, was it Zbyszko? I thought that Sammartino and Zbyszko had some cage matches. Or was it Sammartino and Backlund that had the cage matches? I can't remember. It might have been both, for all I know. But, yeah, I've seen some of those old Sammartino matches, too, from, like, the 60s. I did. I used one of them, another one of them Adobe products to do the animation on it. I can't remember what it was called. If Ace was here, he'd be able to tell you, and he'd probably post that silly little Adobe meme that he has. After Effects. So the aprons were made in Adobe After Effects. Did I pay for that Adobe product? I do not believe so. It was on my computer already. We'll just leave it at that. Um, I never actually. I think I've mentioned this a bunch of times too, but by the time that like Attitude Era had come around, I had like checked out of wrestling. So, guys like I have very little interest in guys like Batista or Benoit. Even I know that he was around before the Attitude Era, but it just that whole thing is not my thing. The oldest Japanese match that I have watched, some Inoki and Baba and early, even some early Jumbo stuff from the 70s, and I want to say probably mid 70s is the latest that I've gone back with Japanese wrestling. So maybe like 76, But yeah, I haven't been able to track down a lot of like I've seen a Rikidozan match once, and I don't know whether it was a full match or just clips. I can barely remember it, but so I don't really count that. But I mean, he died in what, like 65 or 64 or something. So he would have had to have been. I mean, that would have had to have been before that. But I don't really count that as it wasn't something that I really remember very well. Have I watched Misawa versus Kobashi? Yeah, I've seen most of those big All Japan matches that were a big deal and that scored real high on the star ratings and all of that stuff. I was always more of a New Japan fan than an All Japan, so but I've definitely seen a lot of those 80s and 90s All Japan matches. You were in a War Games match. Who do you pick for your three partners? Are there any limitations on who I can pick? Living people only, active people only, I don't know. Or can I just pick anybody? One of them has to be David Arquette, so I could pick two other people then, huh? Uh, but no, if there are no limitations, I'd pick, I don't know, Harley Race. He was my all-time favorite. Steve Williams, who is another one of my all-time favorites. And Gary Albright. And we would kill everyone, and that would be the end of that. So yeah, Harley Race, Dr. Death, and Gary Albright, and that's who I'd pick. Well, of course I'd book myself to win. Um, would you? It depends on what you're trying to do with the graphics. To be honest with you, I don't really have a great answer to that question about whether I recommend altering existing graphics or creating brand new ones. It really depends on which graphics you're trying to change and what you're trying to do. Gary Albright was just the guy was a beast. It doesn't get much better than than watching Gary Albright just suplex the shit out of people. Um, like I said before, I wouldn't. I like the 2K games. I don't think they have shitty gameplay. And as far as actually playing the game, I have more fun playing 2K18 than I do playing Fire Pro. 2K will, unless they implement some kind of AI logic editing like CPU logic like Fire Pro has, it will never compare for a sim. But just 2K games are funner to play to me than Fire Pro is. So, I mean, people can shit on them all they want, but they're still enjoyable games. David Arquette and I'd book J.J. Dillon to win. At least he was involved in wrestling. All right, so I have time for maybe one more match and the questions that come with it, and then I am going to call it an evening of this. I'll still be around. I have to run to the corner store, and they close at 11, and it is 10:16. So, like I said, time for one more match, and then we will a title match. Um, sure, what the hell. Ishibashi is going to defend against the one-man horde. We'll do that match. Since these guys have been throwing the title back and forth forever. I gotta go to the corner store for fucking Arnold Palmer's. Not for booze. I actually don't drink anymore. I haven't drank in years. It's just not my thing. Nope, just regular, straight, non-alcoholic Arnold Palmer's. Half lemonade, half iced tea. I love them. I mean, it's not fair to say I don't drink. I don't enjoy getting drunk or anything. So I will have a beer or something with dinner if I'm out or something like that, or a beer at home while I'm sitting around listening to music with friends. But I don't really I don't drink. The same way that other Americans or other people drink. Just doesn't interest me. My thoughts on Vince Russo. Oh, game crash. My thoughts on Vince Russo. Um, I don't like Vince Russo. Not because Jim Cornette doesn't like Vince Russo, but for a lot of the same reasons. I don't like Crash TV. I don't like hot shotting. I don't like a lot of the things that Russo introduced to wrestling. Um, I don't like monthly pay-per-views. I don't like, just he did a lot of stuff and pushed for a lot of things that I don't agree with. Um, so my opinion on Russo is that I don't feel like he did very many positive things for wrestling. So So my game crashed because of the move mod. Um, I've been messing with it to try to cut back on memory, like I've been saying, but it has made it fairly unstable. So I can run about 3 matches before I crash and have to restart. So I guess since it crashed and restarted, I will answer a couple more questions without a video going, and then I will call it a night. So Um, so your original edits are fairly realistic character-wise compared to some of the more outlandish edit makers. Hello, Voodoo. Where do you draw the creative inspiration from your dudes? Do you get your ideas from real wrestlers sometimes, or you just kind of start a new guy and wing it? I start a new guy and wing it most of the time, and they also probably, I'd be lying if I didn't say that throughout the process I didn't start to sort of draw comparisons between between wrestlers that I'm familiar with, like real life wrestlers that I'm familiar with, and the wrestler that I'm creating. So it's really a little bit of both. And then there are some wrestlers that are obvious ripoffs of real life wrestlers that I've created, and most of those are older guys that that I created when I was a lot younger. I don't know, 18, 19 years old, with Fire Pro D, and so I was a little less conscious about making sure that they weren't blatant ripoffs of existing wrestlers. So, but yeah, mostly it's I usually start on an appearance and then I do the name afterwards, and then while I'm working on the appearance, it'll start to remind me on some level, in some way, of a wrestler that already existed. They might remind me of Vader because they're a bit heavier, or they might remind me of, um, you know, uh, you get the idea. They're wearing tights because that are two-toned, so they remind me of Kawada. Just something stupid like that. So that'll get mixed in there at some point too. But generally, they're not totally winged, and they're not totally based on real life wrestlers. Didn't they just release a bunch of pictures of gameplay? And well, no, I guess it's not gameplay, but it's pictures of stuff that's upcoming from the release in August. I don't really know. Um, why they would need the gameplay isn't going to change. It's going to be the exact same. They're not doing much with it, so you can watch any video of Fire Pro released, probably since December or January or whatever it was that they went full release, version 1.0, and it's going to be pretty much exactly the same. Yeah, exactly. So you're already aware. I didn't. Okay, but yeah, it's going to be the same. It's just new wrestlers, and there'll be new moves, and new moves are always cool. Who doesn't fucking like new moves? But at the same time, it's like it's not going to change the gameplay at all. So I don't get why people care. It's like, if you like Fire Pro, you'll like Fire Pro with new wrestlers, or if you don't like Fire Pro, you're not these new wrestlers aren't going to change your opinion of the game. You know, they're just New Japan guys, and they're not. They're not even good New Japan guys. Sorry, I don't like modern New Japan. Whatever. You give me the classics. I don't. New Japan now is like ROH light in Japan, so I have no interest in it. But it isn't going to change the game. Meh. I mean, amazing match how? That it went 40 minutes? Or, I mean, I didn't see it, so I'm just taking pot shots. Amazing because there were 900 false finishes. Amazing because you could have split it up into 5 other matches that were solid. And, I don't know. I don't like modern indie wrestling. I don't like the way that it's structured. I don't like that it doesn't feel like a contest. Everything feels super scripted and like expected. It doesn't even seem like they're trying to make it a contest like it used to be. I don't know. So yeah, I'm not gonna get into it, but I'm sure that I would not have found it to be an amazing match. Just like I don't like. I didn't like Okada and Kenny. It just felt like it could have been like split into like 4 solid 20-minute matches or 15-minute matches or whatever it was, and it would have saved both of them the trouble of having to go an hour and try to kill one another, that sort of thing. It's just, I don't know. Yeah, Brute's got it. It just doesn't seem like they're actually fighting one another. It just seems like they're showing off all the cool shit that they can do. And I don't give a fuck about all the cool shit that you can do if it looks like your opponent has to fucking help you do all the cool shit that you can do. It just doesn't that doesn't interest me. Guys fighting for moves and pulling off like a half botched move is more interesting to me than looking at all of the fancy bullshit that wrestlers can do now, because everyone knows that it's fake and everybody knows that they're working together, and so no one cares that whatever they're doing is going to show off that they're working together. So they do it anyway because they figure everybody already knows, but it looks like shit because I watch wrestling with a suspension of disbelief, and you're shitting all over that suspension of disbelief with what you're doing. It would be like a movie breaking the fourth wall every fucking, in every fucking scene. And I don't want to fucking watch that. That's just not, it's not why I would go to a movie. I didn't pay to see. What wrestling am I into currently? Bill Watts Mid-South. I love Bill Watts Mid-South. That's what I've been watching lately. And actually, I'm admittedly a Cornette fan, but Smoky Mountain. Somebody uploaded all 200 episodes of Smoky Mountain onto YouTube, and so I have been watching Smoky Mountain, like going back and watching Smoky Mountain because it didn't air where I lived growing up, so it's all new to me. Favorite wrestling match of all time, huh? Honestly, at one point I would have probably been able to answer this, but I don't know now. I don't. New Japan, I mean, I guess he did work in Mid-South, so maybe he meant it on some level that I'm not seeing product-wise, but if he's talking about product-wise, I mean, I think he might need to go back and rewatch some Mid-South or something, because it's, yeah, it is nothing like Bill Watts Mid-South. Not booking-wise, not wrestling-wise, not anything-wise. Like, maybe because New Japan Pro Wrestling runs a tight ship or something, and so that reminded him of Bill Watts. I don't know. But, yeah, that's just... Yeah, Hitman vs. Perfect was definitely in the running. SummerSlam 91, one of my favorite matches of all time for sure. But like I said, I don't know whether I could say that was my favorite. I am trying to remember. Other matches that I really liked, and there are there's a lot of them. And so I don't know. I don't know whether I could narrow it down. So, yeah, see, if he was talking about the wrestling, I really think that he is off base. I know that he was there, and so maybe there's something about it that he knows that I don't. Maybe he's privy to something that they do, like the way they prepare matches. I don't know. that reminded him of Mid-South, but the finished product that gets pumped into fans as somebody who watches Mid-South currently and who watches New Japan Pro Wrestling from time to time currently, like, so I'm not going back and comparing like my old memories of Mid-South to what I'm watching now. I'm watching them both currently, and that's just an insane comparison. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know. I haven't had there hasn't been a commentary team that I've liked in wrestling um, for a long time. So I don't really pay much attention to commentary anymore because it usually ruins shit for me. Um, and I hate to be like one of those old is better guys because I run into that a lot in the metal world, which is I'm also fairly involved with, and so and I always think that that's stupid because it's like, why would you give up on something that you really like, just because it of a certain arbitrary date cutoff. But in the case of wrestling, I continue. I mean, I was a WWE network subscriber so that me and my son could watch the pay-per-views together and stuff, and I can't find anything to like about it. So it's not that I don't try or don't want to. I would love to find a modern company that does wrestling that I really like. And people have suggested stuff like Progress or and it's still the same indie garbage to me. And it may not be fair to the wrestlers that are working there, but I don't enjoy that stuff. There are guys who, and I know that there are guys who have had good matches. I just watched video on YouTube of, and I know some people hate this guy, but he was Simon Gotch in the WWE, but he's Simon Grimm now, I guess. And he was wrestling, God, who the fuck was he wrestling? Some other guy who's fairly popular now. I'm sure that if somebody threw his name out there, I would know who he was, or, But they had a match kind of recently, and it was like a slow build, old school, like mat base match that worked, and it was good, and I liked it. But then the rest of the matches on that card, because of that one match, I watched it and I was like, well, shit, maybe I should check out some more stuff. And I cannot remember which Fed it's in now either. But I went back, and then the rest of the matches were just indie garbage, and so it was like, meh, whatever. I want to find stuff that I like. I want to find a company that I can get into, that puts on new stuff. Because, I mean, I can only watch fucking Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect so many times because I know what fucking happens, But I can't. I'm having trouble, and it sucks. So, yeah. Yeah, I know Zack Sabre Jr. I can't say anything bad about Zack Sabre Jr., but his matches, while they're more ground based or mat based, it's still the same sort of indie stuff that I don't like, if that makes sense. And it may not even be his fault. It may be the people that he's wrestling against, or the way that people expect matches with those kind of smaller indie bred guys to go. I don't know, but I feel like he's got talent to do really good stuff. It's just the matches that he is put into and the spots that they choose to do for a lot of those matches don't interest me. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. And I'm sure that you could put him in with guys that are equally I think I've said on these streams before, I really like Jack Gallagher from 205 Live. I feel like he's goofy, and so Jim Cornette may not like him, but I disagree with Jim Cornette on that point. I think that he's solid, and he has the same problem with the guys that he's working with, where the matches are still WWE style indie matches, even though he's capable of so much more. But if you put him and Zack Sabre Jr. in a match together, I really feel like that could be a fucking amazing match if they didn't feel the need to put on a fucking 40-minute match just to please Dave Meltzer. That's the other thing that I have a problem with, is that matches don't need to be fucking epic to be good. And so, yeah. World of Sport is something I have not got into, but I know I need to. I keep meaning to find more World of Sport stuff, but I never look it up when I'm free. And then somebody will remind me of it, and I'll say, yeah, fuck, I need to look that up, or I need to check around for that stuff, and then I totally don't. So it's something that I want to do and I need to do, but I haven't. And yes, kayfabe was big with me. Like, as I got older in the, I don't know, or later early 90s, as I was like in 6th grade in 92 or 93, and by that point I knew that wrestling was not real, but kayfabe hadn't been completely abandoned at that point. So it's like, it's not real, but you don't want to be told it's not real. You don't want to be reminded that it's not real, and that's why I don't like I was just talking about all of those indie things that everybody's like, well, just let me get my fucking cool ass spots in and Dave Meltzer will cum his pants and give us 12 stars, and fucking Jim Ross will have a fucking heart attack on the mic and blah blah blah. But they're so contrived that it just kills me. It ruins it for me. Like, I don't like that stuff. It doesn't interest me. And I think that's where me and Jim Cornette agree. Like, that's why I'm a Cornette fan, is because we agree on that point. Like, I know that wrestling is fake, just like anyone else, just like anyone involved in the business in the 80s knew that wrestling was fake. But that doesn't mean that you need to constantly remind people that it's fucking fake. Arn Anderson is fucking notorious for not breaking kayfabe, and I know he's not active, but even when they interview him for those WWE no kayfabe, DVDs that they used to release, he would give his interview in character in kayfabe. It was, I thought that was always great. When they would put Arn Anderson talking about a kayfabe event that happened in this wrestler's career, like it was a fucking real thing, But I mean, no, and I can't say that the Undertaker has loosened up over the last, I don't know, 12-ish years. He's gone on, some of the MMA chat, where they talk on ESPN or whatever and talked about boxing or MMA, and totally out of character. So, it's not that he totally sticks with it these days either, but he's definitely a lot more respectable than some of the other guys. So, yeah, and so I get that the internet has made wrestling less. You can't go back to a period where you don't see wrestlers as people, where you see them as a character at this point. So, maybe it's time to move away from wrestlers being ridiculous characters. I don't have any problem with wrestlers being realistic people, maybe with fake names, because they are playing a character on some level, but realistic characters. But the wrestling needs to be equally realistic, and that's, I think, what we've gotten away from. Everything wants to be a shoot now, as far as the angles and stuff like that. They want it to be real and gritty, or they did for a little while. But the wrestling became less real and gritty and more scripted and fake, and obviously smacking you in the face with that shit. So it was just, I don't know, it was a disconnect, and I really lost it. And the Attitude Era was fucking trash, and I know that a lot of people like it, but that shit is just, it's absolute garbage, and I have nothing good to say about it at all. It was complete shit, and I'm glad that it's over with. But what it gave way to was a generation of wrestling fans who think that that's the way to go, and so you still have fucking endless hot-shotting of titles and angles, and it's just, it turned wrestling into trash. It ruined wrestling. It's garbage, and I hate it. So, yeah. And with that, I think I am going to leave y'all to talk about how shitty my opinion on the Attitude Era is, or whatever you want to do. But thank you for listening. Thanks for your questions. I hope that it was at least moderately enjoyable. And I will try to do another one again in a couple of months. That's been my MO as far as these AMAs are concerned. I try to do one every 2 or 3 months. So, but yeah. So keep an eye out for that title mod thing, where the title attires, and like I said, I'm going to expand it to the regular entrance attires as well, so you don't have to use up slots. And if you have any suggestions or questions, I'm usually available in all of the normal Fire Pro places. Feel free to ask there. Just, stay in contact if you're interested in what I'm doing. I know I have a reputation for being an asshole. I I openly embrace that reputation, but I don't feel that it's necessarily earned. So, don't let that throw you off from getting a hold of me or encouraging other people to get a hold of me. I'm usually pretty easy to deal with. I just am also not afraid to say things that make people upset. So, best of both worlds, I guess. But with that, I'm out. You guys have a good night. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. I will catch y'all later.